I call the honourable member Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just listening to the previous speaker, my mind drifted to an old Elton John song. Remember the one from the 70s or 80s? It went something like this: sorry seems to be the hardest word. And I think there's a couple of members on the other side who might reflect on whether sorry is such a hard word to say for the things that they've said inside and outside this chamber. But the biggest apology, Mr. Speaker, should come from the party and for the previous minister, Marion Street, for the total mess that that party, when in government, left ACC. It seems like it's a broken record having to remind the public and the people, the members of this House, what that mess was. $2.4 billion in 2008, $4.2 billion in 2009. And the member who's just resumed his seat talks about the almighty hash of ACC. I kind of agree with that. I just don't agree with the time frame that he was talking about. And I can think of a few worse ministers in its history than the previous minister, Mr. Chairman. In fact, I would suggest to that member that it's not quite mission accomplished, but given the financial mess that this government has inherited and the $7.2 billion, see, they chuckle, they laugh, they think it's a joke. They think that somehow reporting a combined loss, a combined deficit of $7.2 billion is something of a joke. And that member, when not a member of Parliament, accused everybody else of a jack-up. Accused the minister, I'm sorry, did the member say I can't read an account? Well, I'm sorry, I'm only a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. But apparently a union hack can read accounts now better than a chartered accountant. Well, I'm sorry, but I think it's worth repeating something in this House. How many times have you been an accountant?
Order.
Has that member been an accountant? I apologise. We've heard that a bit before. That's right. Because clearly, if you think that a $7.2 billion loss is okay, then somebody needs to go back to accounting school, don't they? Because if they didn't think the loss was real, here's what was real. The 55% increases in levies that the levy payers of this country were faced with on average had the turnaround not been put in place. 55% increase. See, that's not mythical. Every single levy payer in this country, every employer, every employee, every motor vehicle user, every person who uses those services were faced with a 55% increase. And why? Well, it's a simple reason. Previous ACC spokesman David Parker seemed to think it was because of the economic downturn. And there's no doubt that the investment returns in ACC were lower as a consequence of the recession. But that's only half the story. Because the simple fact is, ACC had budgeted for that and built it into their levies. In fact, their investment returns were higher than budgeted and certainly higher than the average returns being enjoyed by other institutional investors. Here's why. Welcome to the debate. It's a simple word to that member. It's just a 5-letter word. It's called sorry. And here's why. Rehabilitation rates plummeted, Mr. Speaker. Exit rates at 90 days, 180 days and 12 months dropped. And for every percentage that the rehab rate at 1 year dropped, that was $500 million more on the levy payer. $500 million more. And the cumulative effect on that, on the net present cost of the future, net present cost of the claims into the future was billions and billions and billions of dollars. And it's absolutely not acceptable to say, well, they had a few $billion in the bank. They had a $24 billion liability. And thankfully, it's being turned around. I congratulate this government on being able to return $500 million of levies back into the pockets of hard-working levy payers. And there are some issues with privacy. I accept that, and I have a lot of sympathy for those who have been affected by the privacy leaks. But I'm very, very confident that the Minister is able to articulate very clearly what this government's expectations are for ACC, and it is about restoring trust and confidence. There's no doubt it has taken a dent, but I can tell you it is still much, much higher. I can tell the members it is much, much higher than it was 3.5 years ago when this government inherited the mess, took office and is continuing to fix it. I look forward to that continuing under this Minister.
I call the Honourable Minister Judith